That was an example of how a long duration stun is traditionally performed. The Sandman is an oddity of weapon that can temporarily stun enemies that are a certain distance away. The further away the target, and therefore the harder to hit, the longer the stun duration, until it caps at a full stun where the enemy is completely immobilized. What I'm doing is a little bit different. Now you may have noticed that Pyro was stunned for quite a while. And actually, when a Sandman crits, it stuns a target for additional 2 seconds. You may have experienced this yourself, with some Sandman stuns lasting a lot longer than others. And this is normal because while the Sandman is a melee weapon and it shoots a projectile, that projectile still has the same chance of a crit as a regular melee swing. So if you're doing a lot of damage, you're going to be getting some pretty frequent random crit Sandman balls that'll do a decent amount of damage and can also stun again for that additional 2 seconds. It's important to note that mini crits don't add any duration. So basically, the whole idea, what I'm doing right now, is trying to increase the duration of stuns artificially. I'm not going to swing for these crits randomly, I'm going to get Kritzkrieged. And it ended up being a good bit of fun. Now, there are a few things I didn't quite count on going into this. First of all was my incompetence. We had plenty of opportunities to get really good stuns off, but I kept making stupid mistakes. I'd be too close, or I'd completely miss. These times when I'd shoot a Sandman ball between like 3 different people, probably more difficult to miss than hit in those situations. Now, to explain my loadout choices. I used the BFB because I had this wild idea that because the Sandman stun duration is calculated on ball hitting and not necessarily where you hit it from, you could hit a ball, run backwards, and therefore increase the stun duration. I never actually did that because that's incredibly difficult to do, and I was having enough trouble just hitting the ball normally. So the BFB just ended up separating me from my Kritzkrieg medic more than often, which was, pretty annoying, not the most helpful thing in the universe. Another thing that the BFB is great for is running in and picking up your ball after one swing, but I didn't really make use of that too much. My secondary is the Flying Guillotine, which as we all know is excellent against stun targets. That 150 burst damage is really, really useful. But even if you miss your stun, it's not too bad with the Kritzkrieg either. 150 damage will end up being, let's say, the equivalent of a fully charged body shot from a sniper, which can be really helpful. There are a few things hampering this tactic from being more than just a silly gimmick, and the main one is just the fact that when you're Kritzkrieged, doing anything but damage just feels like a waste of time. I mean, if you could be shooting them for 180 or stunning them for 2 seconds, sure the stun's useful, but unless you're stunning like a super overhealed, like let's say heavy, it's going to be generally more useful just to shoot them and kill them. There's also the fact that if you're terrible like me, the Sandman can be really inconsistent. Plus, you waste time switching to and from your Sandman to your primary, and it's just a massive pain. Thinking about it now, the most optimal way to use this loadout is probably to, be fighting a crowd of people, Kritzkrieg Sandman one target so they're out of the fight, and then take the rest out with your scattergun, then go back to the first target you stunned. Because otherwise you're just stunning someone that you probably would have just killed anyway with a few shots, and it's a little bit of a waste of time, maybe. It's also pretty funny, during a Kritzkrieg, the boost reduction on damage on BFB pretty much doesn't exist because you're going to be dealing so much with your scattergun that it's going to pretty much refill to full every single time you take a shot. I gotta admit though, when the stars align, the enemy's the right kind of distance away, and your aim is true, and you've got a Kritzkrieg to back you up, you can get a really, pretty much consistent 2-second plus stun, which in an FPS game like TF2 that kind of focuses on movement and aim, yeah, it felt pretty silly and pretty unfair to get it to pull it off. I mean, if you're using a Kritzkrieg on any other class, or even without the Sandman, you could probably just one-shot them with a rocket or a sticky, but there's just something about the loss of mobility of a stun and the way it just takes all control away from you. It's kind of worse than being insta-gibbed, in my opinion. If I was to do this all again, I would definitely slap on the scattergun instead of the BFB. It just ends up being a pain rather than helping out. And I'd also definitely focus on aiming those Sandman balls more. I think I was leading my targets a little bit too much. The Sandman ball is among, I think, tied for the fastest projectile in the entire game. It's insane. So there's really no need to lead targets as much as I was. And it also doesn't help that the BFB's variable movement speed was giving me different sort of timings as to my strafe and letting go of the ball. Just all around terrible idea to use the BFB. No idea what I was doing. Why am I giving this weapon a chance? Although it is really fun to zoom around at the same time. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this new kind of take on the Sandman, pairing it up with the Kritzkrieg in an unusual way. I thought it was weird, I thought it was wacky, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyway, that's all I got for you right now. Catch you next time. Wait, what?